There are 3 themes you will find in many of the greatest stories of all time. In this video, I'm going to share what they are, why they're so prevalent, I'll offer examples from popular films, and finally, I'll let you know how you can turn theory into action, leveraging the themes to improve your films. Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Austin Meyer. I'm a documentary filmmaker, National Geographic Explorer, and on this channel, I share the field-tested skills, mindsets, and lessons that have helped me on my journey as a documentary filmmaker. The success of a documentary film is directly proportional to how compelling the story is. Maybe that sounds obvious, but also if you look at what actually gets talked about here in YouTube filmmaking land, it's easy to think that the success of a documentary film is more related to how nice the camera is that it was shot on, or how clean the audio is, or how big the budget is, or what celebrity is in it, or where it comes out. The truth is, if you want to create a film that is memorable, that stands the test of time, that makes an impact on people, it all comes down to story. That's why I'm back with another video on story craft, where today we are going to look at 3 themes that you will find in virtually every great documentary. Let's start with the theme of loss. The theme of loss doesn't always declare itself on the surface, but if you look close enough, you will find it. Loss is embedded in almost all memorable stories, from Pixar to Star Wars to Oscar-winning documentaries. Just look at the last 5 Oscar-winning documentaries. 20 Days in Mariupol. The story is grounded in the loss of a Ukrainian city. In Navalny, it's the loss of his own life and Russia's hopes for a democratic leader. In Summer of Soul, it's about the lost history of a music festival. In My Octopus Teacher, it's the loss of an octopus turned companion. And in American Factory, it's the loss of jobs and the pride of American manufacturing. The reason that loss is present in almost every great story is because every single one of us experiences loss. Personal losses, the loss of identity, the loss of dreams. Loss is a fundamental part of being human, and yet, in our culture, we hardly ever talk about it. And the fact that we hardly ever talk about it is actually one of the reasons I believe it's so powerful in stories. Why? Well, I think that more and more, our society turns to stories, to films, novels, theater, and television, to reflect on what it means to live a good life. And because stories bring order to the chaos of life, we can get a lot of insight from them. Stories offer us a deeper understanding of the patterns of living within personal and emotional contexts. And I think that's why we read and watch. We don't watch to escape. I don't watch a sitcom like Parks and Recreation, which I happen to be watching right now and absolutely love, because I want to escape reality. I watch because it draws me closer in my search for reality. Great stories not only entertain us, but they help us make sense of being human. This is why loss is present in nearly every story that stands the test of time. Because all of us are experiencing loss or will experience loss, and yet we don't have people to talk about it with. We don't know how to make sense of it, how to process it. And that's why we turn to stories to help us. For me, loss and death is a theme in a lot of my work. From covering maternal health care and the loss of life in sub-Saharan Africa, to the loss of home in the world's largest Syrian refugee camp and in California due to wildfires, to this story I wrote and photographed for Ultra Running magazine about a man who turned to long-distance running to grieve the loss of a loved one. I might not have been aware of this at the time I pitched that story, but looking back on it now, I think I was drawn to telling Eddie's story of running through grief because I fear the death of my loved ones so much. When I heard about Eddie's story, I saw someone who had experienced devastating loss, but who was moving through the grief by turning to long-distance running. And as a long-distance runner myself, I wanted to learn how he was leveraging this shared passion to process the kind of pain I fear the most in life. I wrote that story for the same reason I watch stories, to get insight into how to live life. A life in which loss is inevitable. So as you work on your films, I urge you to think about this theme of loss. What is it that your main character is losing? How do they feel about that loss? And then can you capture the action that comes as a response to that feeling? That's what storytelling is all about. The next theme in memorable stories that I want to talk about today is power. Power is linked to change, which I talked about previously on the channel, and if you haven't seen that video, I'll put a link to it in the description. When I say power, I don't mean power over other people necessarily. Power is the ability to produce change or prevent change from happening. And that is the heartbeat of drama. In most films, characters start in a place of low power. But by the end of the story, after going on some sort of journey to acquire certain character traits, they reach a status of higher power. A great example of this is one of my most favorite movies, Almost Famous. In the movie Almost Famous, a 15-year-old music lover named William has aspirations of being a big-time journalist for Rolling Stone magazine, writing feature stories about the top bands of the day. That is his desire. But at the beginning of the movie, he does not have the power to make that happen. And that is one of life's greatest challenges. We want something, but right now, we can't get it. And that is what sets a story in motion. The go-get-it principle. If you want something that you don't have, go get it. For William in Almost Famous, that means disobeying his mom, lying about his identity to Rolling Stone, going on tour with a band, getting found out, all coming crashing down, and then eventually writing a cover story for Rolling Stone. The movie starts in William's childhood bedroom as he looks at the records of rock and roll legends. And the movie ends in that same childhood bedroom as he interviews the lead singer of the biggest band in rock and roll for Rolling Stone magazine.
So Russell, what do you love about music?
The story maps William's journey from being powerless with a dream to powerful. His power comes by the way he grew as a person, to the point where he has the skills, maturity, and wisdom to finally write a cover story for that magazine. And that change only happens because of the go-get-it principle. A character has to strive, has to chase, has to make sacrifices, and has to battle all the forces that wish to prevent them from gaining power. If you're a documentary filmmaker watching right now, try this exercise the next time you watch a documentary. Chart the points of power for the key characters. The way to do this is to take character X, write down where they are at the beginning of the story. What is their desire? Then write out what personal traits or outside forces make that character currently powerless to reach that desire. Then once you get to the end of the documentary, write out where they are now. Did they reach their desire? And if so, what character traits have they developed that made that change possible, making them more powerful than before? This is not only an exercise to do when you're watching documentaries. That's a way to, train the muscle, train your attention to it. But this is also one you can think through during production of whatever project you're working on. And the last theme that I want to touch on today is love. Love, like the theme of loss, is something that every one of us grapples with, whether it's romantic love, familial love, the love present in friendship, or any relationship filled with care. We're always thinking and dreaming of love. Stories offer us an opportunity to see those dreams and fears reflected back at us. We dream of an everlasting love, and we see that reflected back to us by some of the most famous love stories in history, from Romeo and Juliet to the Titanic, which end in a collision of love and death. And we fear that we won't receive love, often getting lost while we prioritize other temptations. Examples of that would be pretty much every supervillain, as well as films like Ray and Walk the Line. But stories always bring us back to what is truly meaningful: our connection to others. Connection isn't just meaningful in a moral sense, but also in a story craft sense. Relationships reveal character. How does someone treat others who love them? What decisions does someone make that distances them from love? How someone revolves around the axis of love reveals who they are. For the documentary filmmakers out there, illustrating love in an authentic way can be one of our most difficult challenges. This is because oftentimes the most loving actions happen when no one is watching, let alone when there's a camera there. Nonfiction love happens in quiet moments, in gestures, in whispers, in ritual, in closed door rooms, in vulnerability, in the unspoken. If we as documentary filmmakers want to capture those moments, we need to develop an incredibly high level of trust with our film's participants so that we can be in spaces where love is expressed. We need to develop a level of comfort in which participants act as if there isn't a camera there. And we need to understand the relationship with such specificity that we know where and when meaningful moments could happen. If you want to see some authentic depictions of love in documentaries, check out the films American Symphony, where you'll see romantic love, and Boys State, where you'll see friendship love. The former was filmed over the course of 7 months, 7 days a week, from when the main character woke up to when he fell asleep, and the latter was filmed over the course of a week. So authentic love can be documented in our art form on all sorts of time horizons, but it always takes a lot of skill. If you enjoyed this video, you might also like this one I mentioned earlier in this video on change in story and why most filmmakers misunderstand it. I'll see you next week. Till then, go out and tell some stories.